Hello everyone, and welcome to 4KB Shorts. Let's learn with Kerbal Space Program 0.24. So as you guys can see, there are a few differences here in the VAB, and that's where we're going to start because that is where we always start. If you take a look here in the VAB, our camera angle is different. Yes, normally, as you guys I'm sure are aware, we would be staring right down the line straight to the launch pad, but we're not. We're now at a slight angle. Not a super important change, but it can really put you off, I think, if you come in here and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Another important change is which way your vehicle is facing. If we click on our command pod, look at that. Our command pod is no longer facing forward. The door is no longer here. It is now facing this way. Our flag has been moved to the other side, so you guys, if your flag is there. But the rest of the VAB seems to be pretty set. I think they may have upgraded it a little bit, different colored lights, things like that. Nothing super important, all visual, cosmetic kind of things that they've added into the game, but something that is super important to throw out to you guys, that there are differences. Little other differences that they've added visually are they use different text now, different font. For most things, I believe this font is the same, but there are some different fonts outside when you're flying your ship and things like that. Different icons. We now have a hook icon for parts. We have a hammer and a wrench for action groups, and we still have our Kerbal crew member for our crew. However, the buttons have been updated with slightly different colors and slightly different designs here and there. If we take a look over here on the left, what we see is we see a new setup, because the new setup has added contracts. Contracts, three things. Well, science has already been added. We know about science, but there are three things. There's now science, prestige, and money. Yes, they have added money. Money requires. So if you take a look here, our vessel costs $600. This is your vessel cost, $600. That's the price that's put on the part itself. As you can see there, $600. This is very important to know if you play career mode with mods, because not all mods are balanced for money. You get some mods that have $0 parts. You have some mods that have $1 million parts, because people, you know, they had a money icon and they're like, hey, put down the money, you need to put how much money it's worth. People are like, money $0, money win billion because it's funny, so on and so forth. So if you have mods and you want to play with those mods in career mode, please remember that your vessel may cost more than you can launch if you put in a mod that's really expensive. Some other things that they've added, of course, so this is how much our vessel costs, $, and this is how much money we have. Now, as you can see, I have a lot of money in the account right now, and the reason why is because we're not starting at the beginning of career mode, because in order to show off contracts, it's always important to have some contracts on hand. Most of the rest of the buttons have remained the same. The only few changes that we've had here are the symmetry mode is now located here, as well as the angle snap is located here. Symmetry mode looks a little bit better, a little more 3D, a little bit more visually intensive. We have our center of mass, we have our center of lift, and we have our center of thrust and center of lift buttons have been moved here. Otherwise, everything looks pretty much the same. We still have our reset button for stages. And here we have these two very important things. These are your contracts. Now, your contracts tell you what contracts you need to do. So in this case, we have to test the LFBKR 1×2 in-flight over Kerbin. And here are the stats. So if we want to test this out, we would put it on a ship. We would have to be at Kerbin, flying at Kerbin, between the altitude of 7,400 meters and 15,400 meters. Our speed would have to be between 140 meters per second to 240 meters per second. Now, I'll be demonstrating that when we go outside. But basically, each one of these changes from what it looks like, I believe it's a clock icon, or I'm not sure, it looks like a clock to me, but I never really examined them close. But this little dot, this little circle here, will change to a little green check mark. And when all the things are green check marked, you stage or activate the item in question, whether it's a decoupler or an engine or whatever it might be. You stage it and start it. And when you do that, this then becomes green. This becomes green, and you're done. You're set. Now, once that happens, all these things will begin to flash. You'll get little notifications, all sorts of stuff. But that's what you do. Now, we have a few contracts here that we have online and ready to rock and roll. As you can see, we already have a couple of green dots because we have to test the LV909 liquid fuel engine orbiting Kerbin. This is a very early contract, but I've been having trouble with it for whatever reason. Staying between 8,500 and 86.6 kilometers is difficult for some reason. I don't know why that one isn't working for me, but it's not, and I'll have to figure out why. We are going to demonstrate a completion of one of these contracts so you guys can see how it looks. But that's how that works. This is how this works. So always keep this in mind when you're building a ship. Now, while we're in the VAB, before we switch over to accept a contract, I'm going to show you something about these test contracts, something very, very important. Sometimes you'll get a test contract, test an item in whatever, that you don't have the part for. Now when you do that, luckily for you, you get a loaner part. Now the loaner part will show up in your VAB differently. If we go to propulsion, look at this. We have 3 parts here that are bright blue. These parts are not yet unlocked. But because we are required to test these 3 parts, as is here, the test the LFBKR 1x2 in flight over Kerbin, that's this. That is the LFBKR 1x2. I don't have it unlocked in the science lab. It's not unlocked in the science lab because I haven't gotten to that node yet. We're at node, I'm at like node 4 at this point, and it's only, you know, this is over at like node 5, 6, 7. So what they've done is they've given us a loaner part to test. And those will show up blue here. So if you ever have a test a part and you don't know what part, like you don't remember the names, right? You're like, I don't know what name, I don't know what an LFBKR 1x2 is. I don't know what that is. But how am I supposed to find that? Well, you go here and you look at your blue parts. Your blue parts will be parts that you are required to test but do not have access to. Now, if you have a part that you're required to test and you do have access to it, such as the LV909 liquid fuel engine, we do have that. It will still appear, let me put the right one, it'll still appear right here, LV909 liquid fuel engine, just like it's supposed to. But you can test it out just like you would any other part. So you still get the contract, you still get the ability to test the part, you still get the ability to complete the contract and earn the funds and everything else, but you don't have to have the part it's not a part that's on loan, it's a full-on part. Now if we take a look, we can add a few more parts to our ship, and as you can see, our price is going up on our ship. So just add like 3 parts, there we go. So it's a $2,200 ship, but we have, you know, $666,000 to work with. I don't know what they decided to call the money. I know that it was like put up to a vote, but I have yet to hear anyone call it anything, so we're just going to call it money for now. We can call it Kerbal Cash, you can call it Kerbucks, you can call it Kerbopolis, Kerbopoly money. You know, like Monopoly money, I don't know. You can call it whatever you want, but we're just going to call it money for the purposes of this Let's Learn. So that is the VAB. Those are the changes in the VAB. This is a little bit of an indication of what you can do with the contract system. Again, most of the buttons have remained the same. Nothing really super spectacular, but what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the contract area. And what that's going to do is what we're going to do is we're going to look through the contracts and see what kind of information we can find on the contracts. So let's head on over that way. Alright, here we are. So if we take a look up here, we now have a new bar up here. This bar will appear on most of your screens except for the VAB. This is your money, your reputation, and your science. Now we only have 4.3 science because you know, I've spent it all. Reputation starts out as a yellow bar. I believe it's a yellow bar, a yellowish bar. It goes to green, and then it goes to blue, and then it goes to this oddly warpish looking blue, light blue, dark blue looking thing. Prestige is of course earned by doing awesome things and lost by doing very stupid things. You can decide on which is which. Now I wanted to go through and get a couple of contracts, look at a couple of contracts here. So to show you the different kind of contracts you can get, I had to go through about 30 minutes of gameplay. So if we take a look, we have available, active, and archives. Now available contracts of course that we have available that Gene will give us. Active are contracts we currently have active. These are the same ones we saw on the VAB. And then archives are those contracts that have been completed. So as you can see, I've completed about, I don't know, what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 contracts, 14 or 15 contracts. So, you know, not very many at all. Each one has a star rating. Star rating determines how difficult it is assumed to be. So launch a new vessel, star rating of 1. I am not going to read this to you because it is written in such a way, it's doublespeak, okay? You may look at it and go, oh my god, that's the worst kind of Spanglish I've ever seen. It's not. The guys of Squad can speak English just fine. Just listen to Max, you know that they can speak English just fine. This is written in doublespeak. It uses a lot of words to say absolutely nothing. You can read them, but when I read them, it hurts my head. So just note that this actually does say stuff. It says important stuff, but it's all written in doublespeak. So you can read it as sort of a joke, as sort of whatever, but really the TLDR of it is located right down here. This is what you want to look for if you want to know what you're supposed to do. But if you want to read these, they're kind of cute. It's just I can't read them out loud because I'll trip over my own tongue and fall over. So if we look at our old contract, one of the first contracts you can get, launch a new vessel. Agent, Kerbin World's first record-keeping society, which is this. Now, just so you guys know, these icons were created and submitted by the community. There was a contest to create and submit these, you know, the different... basically, they had the names of the companies, and then people submitted their ideas of what that company's logo should look like, and then that's what was implemented in the game. So these are all contest winners who have added these on here, which is really great. We're currently using the R&D logo, which is from the Research and Development Department. Very basic. So if we want to launch a new vessel, we'll go ahead and skip the doublespeak. The TLDR is right here. We want you to launch a vessel to officially start off the space program. Yay! And of course, Gene has something to say about it. It probably won't make the front page on the news, but it's a proper job and it needs doing. And as you can see, every time we click, Gene will give us an indication of whether or not he thinks we can complete the contract. So he gives us a little nod and a little uh-huh. Super excited and big thumbs up. If he believes that you cannot complete the contract, he will give you kind of a no face, or at least he did previously. They may have changed it. I don't know. But so far he's saying that we can complete all these contracts. Yeah, big thumbs up, big thumbs up. So he's saying we can complete these contracts. But if you click on one and he gives you kind of a no face, the idea is basically maybe you won't be able to complete that. Keep an eye out on Gene. He might actually give you a little bit of heads up saying, I don't think you can do that. You might not be able to make it. So we take a look at launch a vessel. We're going to go back to launch a vessel. So we want you to launch a vessel to officially start off the space program. Prestige is trivial, meaning you don't get much out of it. Objectives, launch a new vessel. We've completed it, of course. Rewards, you get an advance of $1,835 to help you build your ship. Upon completion, you get $4,587, 5 science, and 11 prestige. Failure, you will lose $2,000. So not only do you lose the advance they gave you, you also have to pay them a fee of like $165 out of your own pocket. Super important to know that. And a failure could be a cancellation. Cancellation is a failure. So if you say, oh, you know, I took that contract on accident and don't want to do it, I don't have the parts, it's going to run out, whatever, and you go cancel, that counts as a failure. So be very cautious about that. Squad did try to make it. They have talked about balancing and things like that. They're going to try to keep balancing going to make it all fair and even and fun. But they want everybody to know that they're not going to let you fall too deep into the hole. So just so you guys know, they start you out with about $10,000, and it's more than enough to start, even just to fly a rocket. Because the first few contracts you get are set in altitude, like set an altitude of 5,000 meters. You can do that with a single pod and a solid rocket booster. I mean, not hard at all. Alright, so if we go back to available, there's some fun contracts, new fun types of contracts that you can figure out as you go. Explore Minmus. So prestige is exceptional amount of prestige. We are incomplete, so achieve orbit around Minmus, incomplete. Transmit or recover scientific data from space around Minmus, incomplete. You don't have to transmit. I've done a recovery mission. It works. Recovers work fine. I did one over Kerbin. As long as you have pod in your, or excuse me, as long as you have science in your pod that says it's from Minmus, this will be completed. So you don't even have to transmit if you don't want to. Land on Minmus is another thing you have to do. You have to do all these things. And transmit or recover scientific data from the surface of Minmus. So you have to go there, achieve orbit, get data, land, get data, then come back. And there's a lot. Look at that. Advance is $29,000. Completion is $146,000. And then failure is negative $35,000. And of course, you do also lose prestige. Right now, prestige doesn't do anything as far as I'm aware. It's supposed to affect available contracts potentially in a future release. But as of this moment, prestige is mostly just a number. But just keep it in mind that it is something. So if you have low prestige, if you keep failing, people aren't going to give you a $10 million contract to try to fly to a planet if you can't even get off the ground. Now from here you can accept a contract, or you can cancel it. Of course there's nothing to cancel really. But if you have a contract on hand, you can say, I don't want this contract. And of course they have a deadline, 425 days before, you know, to do those ones. And some of them are like 2 days. These ones are really long, 350 days. But some of them are really short. Some of them are like 2 days. You have 2 days to do this. Usually when a part is on loan, you have 2 days to do it. Some of the other contracts you can do, of course, is plant a flag on the moon. We have 1 day, 5 hours, 29 minutes. You have to do it in 1 day, 1 Kerbal day. You have to plant a flag on the moon. Science data from space around the moon. And then we can test basic jet engine in flight over Kerbin. Test Rockomac 47S in flight over Kerbin, so on and so forth. Now these are all rated level 3s. Exceptional as prestige. So yeah, we get level 3s here. Here's one that you guys may have a lot of fun with or may not, depending. And this is one of the ones I wanted to unlock, which is Rescue Patwise Kerman from Kerbin. So of course this is just more doublespeak. But if you look here, rescue Patwise Kerman, who is stuck in orbit around Kerbin, return him safely to Kerbin. So what this means is it will expire 2 days, 3 hours, 46 minutes, 54 seconds from accepting it. Duration is 40 years, 197 days, 4 hours, 42 minutes, 51 seconds. And then objective is to get Patwise Kerman aboard a vessel and then return home and recover Patwise Kerman. So you can rescue Kerbals. Now, of course, this is the first one I've ever come across. This is the first one that unlocked. That's why I chose at this point in the game to do to actually do the video, is because this is a really interesting thing. They'll put Kerbins in a ship in orbit around a planet and you have to go to that planet or moon or whatever, rendezvous with that ship, collect the Kerbin, and bring them back. Now, for now, that's difficult enough for people who are just starting out or people who can't dock very well or things like that. That's hard enough. The worst part about it, the hardest part about it, is if you add things like food, water, oxygen. The difficulty curve just spikes because now not only do you have food, water, oxygen for your Kerbals, but you need food, water, oxygen for the Kerbal on the other ship. It's not balanced for that. And so it's very, 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 very important for people who use mods, again, to know that this will add a level of difficulty for modding that basically you can never accept these contracts as a mod. Because the ship that the character you have to save, the Kerbal you have to save is on, won't have that life support. They will have most likely life support for 1 day. And if they're, say, around Minmus, it takes almost a day to get there. If they're around Duna, and you're not at a perfect phase angle, even if you are, there's no way you can make it to Duna in a day. So you will have to keep an eye on this, especially for modding purposes. So this is going to change the whole field of modifications for the game. Modders are going to have to take a lot more depth into their mods. And rework them in order to make them work better, because now things have changed to such a level where Kerbals are stranded in space and you have to go rescue them. So super important. Also really, really awesome for docking, for Kerbal transfers, for EVAs, things like that. This is really starting to get into the area where I was hoping that Squad would go, which is where Kerbals become more of a central key component to the game rather than just the rockets being the key component and Kerbals just being little guys who ride on the rockets, where sending up a probe ship is just as good as sending up a Kerbal ship. I mean, why even send up a Kerbal when a probe does exactly the same thing? So having Kerbals become an integral part of the space agency is really, really awesome. And so those are the contracts. Lots of different types of contracts, mostly those three. There are tests. Is basically what you're going for: tests, goals, and rescues. So our test, of course, is to test something. Goals, of course, are to set destinations, science recovery, things like that. And then, of course, rescues are the rescue a Kerbal from a horrible, horrible fate. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to check out a flight. We're going to complete a contract. And I think our best contract, fastest contract, would be to simply test a rocket. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put together a really quick rocket using test components. We're just going to do a fly at Kerbin kind of thing. So we're going to do a test components, and then I'm going to show you how a completed contract works. So we're going to head back out to the launch pad with a completed ship, and I'll show you guys how that works. So I'll see you there. Hello everybody, here we are out on the launch pad, and not much has changed, but as I stated earlier, there are some changes to things like the font. So this font is different here, font is different down here. So they changed a few of the fonts here, but mostly everything's running about the same. The biggest difference is up here in the corner. What we have here is we have 4 buttons now. We have our communications button, which is basically telling us when a contract is completed. We have our contracts, which will remind us what contracts we have to do and where our current contracts currently stand. We also have our resources panel, which is now this little fuel tank looking thing. Same old resources panel that we're used to, but now it's a bigger icon and slightly different. We also have our prestige, money, and science meter here. Tells us how much science we have on hand, how much money we have on hand, and how much prestige. Again, this one's not really important unless you want to see how much a transmitted data gets you. I'm assuming this updates as soon as transmitted data is received. So you say, hey, I want to transmit my crew report. Transmit a crew report, open up your science paper. Oh, we went up 10 science. Good to go. So it's interesting to have that there, but not important. The only problem I have is getting it to go away. There it is. When you click it, it stays up. And if you click it again, sometimes it doesn't want to go away. Sometimes, well, now it's not being a pain. I think it's really, yeah, see, like that, and you have to click it a bunch of times. A little buggy, but it works. Now, we've got the LBX521386, whatever, the LBF, here it is, the LFBKR1-2, or 1 times 2 in flight over Kerbin. So our rules here are we have to be on Kerbin flying at altitude between 7,400 and 15,400 meters, and then we have to have a speed between 140 and 240 meters per second. So I'm going to leave this up, and what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye on this until all these are checked. And once those are checked, the contract will be automatically completed because, of course, if we use this rocket to get that high, it should give us the yes, it should give us a contract without a problem. Now, one thing that they did change, and it's big important for you guys to know this, especially if you're a veteran flyer, this is already set to 50% upon launching your vehicle. It's not at 0, it's at 50%. So because of that, if you like to start lower or if you'd like to start higher, please note that when you first launch your vehicle, it will always be set at 50%. They just decided to do that, I guess, to keep people from crashing their vehicle. It's hard to say, but it is set to 50%, so just know that's a constant change. I like to go up to about 3/4 and then throttle back as necessary, but without MechJeb, or MechJeb or Kerbal Engineer, I don't know how far we can get. So let's go ahead and just launch, and hopefully we get up to these heights and these speeds, and then we can go ahead and test our rockets. Let's go. So there we go, we are now flying. We got a checkbox for flying, which is great. We're going to have to adjust our speed because we're almost up to 240 meters already. But we do have to get up to at least 7,400 meters. So we're now between 140 and 240. But as soon as we cross that 240 mark, it's going to be very upset at us. It's actually going to go ahead and uncheck itself as soon as we cross 240. And I'll just be in a couple seconds here. And boom. So yeah, we're now going too fast. So we're going to throttle back a little bit. We're still going up because our weight's going down. So we got to keep ourselves going up. There we go. So we're now checked again. So this is basically what you kind of have to do a test. So we're basically running a test. We're running a test. That's how we're doing this. So there we go. And now we're all checked. Now, as you can see, we're not getting any kind of... We're not getting a completion here. And the reason why is because, and this is one that's kind of bugging me a little bit on some of these contracts, is because we didn't stage the rocket here. Yeah, we didn't stage the rocket here. Oh, okay, apparently we have a run test item here. What's this? I did not know this was here. This is new. Okay, let's go ahead and try this. 240, run test. Ah, okay. So there's something that I just learned right now. Apparently, if you're using the item in question, what you can do is you can right-click and you can click that run test. So that way, if it doesn't auto detect, you can force it to detect. Oh, nice little button there. So there, we just learned it right off the bat. I had not had to do that before. That's great. All right, now we're kind of slowing our ascent because there's no reason to keep going. But as you can see, we tested it. We got ourselves a green, and if you guys saw, this little guy was blinking a little bit. Both of these will blink. They'll go from white to green to white to green. And what this does is it gives us a contract complete. Let's see again. It bugs me with that contract. Stop it. Like I said, it gives you some bugginess. We click that, and it gives us this pop-up. Contract is complete. Test LFB KR1-2, blah, blah, blah. Over Kerbin. Test complete. We got some good data there. Thanks. Completion. We got $60,000, 48 science, and 38 prestige. So if we look at our science, we're now up to 52. So it's automatically updated. So is our money. Now from that, what we're going to do is we're going to cut our engine, and we're going to eject our part. And Jebediah Kerman, of course, is going to have a great time. Now we can do a crew report really quick. And we're going to keep it, even though we've already done science for it. We're going to keep the crew report. And the reason why is because we're going to go ahead and start fast forwarding. And it's so I can show you guys the end of a flight. Because the end of the flight has now changed as well. The data that you get after a flight has become a little bit different. A little bit different. We are moving rather quickly. Hopefully we slow down a lot more. I suppose I could open our parachute to help slow our descent. If it does, I don't know. It might not. Who knows? Jebediah may die. I hope he doesn't, but he might. Okay, there it goes. Now the speed's starting to come back down. A little bit worrying there. Alright. So I'll go ahead and bring Jebediah back down. And I'm going to continue to record all the way through the exit screen, but I will be cutting out the exit screen for you guys. I don't even know if you need to know that, but it's something to talk about. I will be cutting out the loading screen, the loading screen, because even though the game is now using 64-bit, yay, I know, cheers everywhere. The game is now stable in 64-bit Windows, which makes modding and things like that. Everyone's super excited about modding and things like that, so they get to use more of their RAM rather than the standard 3.5 gigs that the game was forced to use previously. It still takes a little while to load. And that's because it is a very big, very complex game, and so it takes a couple seconds to load. I am running this version on an SSD. I normally don't run on an SSD, but I'm running this version on an SSD just for loading purposes, but it still takes a few seconds to load. On top of that, I did try to run it with a quad-core. I am running a quad-core Phenom 2 processor, but it still has a little bit of trouble. Unity does not work well with multi-core processors. They work well with dual-core. But anything above dual-core, and it starts to bog down really bad. And so I did try to run it with all 4 cores running simultaneously, but it started running crappy and wasn't working. So it is still stuck at dual-core processors. but it is running 64 bits of RAM. So if you guys use a lot of mods, especially visual mods, things like that, and you have a lot of RAM that you haven't been able to use because it was stuck in 32-bit at 3.5 gigs, you are now able to run more mods. But as always, it is a beta, or an alpha. It's not even beta yet. It is an alpha. It is a launch game. I know a lot of people think it's a complete game, but it's not. It is still new. So if you mod the crap out of it and it starts to crash, 64-bit doesn't cure everything, although 64 meters might. All right, now there's other thing I wanted to show you out here, and the autosave just showed it to me. They have moved your save data. Oh, we got a couple more things here. What did we get? We have a contract ability test Mark 16 parachute and flight over Kerbal. No, we got that one without even trying. Go ahead and trash that. And test LFB, and we will trash that as well. They did move since all this is up here now, they did move the save load information, the little information panel, down here. So if we hit F5, quick saving is now located here. If we hit F9, hold F9 to load last quick save. Those are now located here, so don't bother looking up here anymore. They're now located here. Again, just some visual changes, but these are just as important as everything else. So let's head back to the recover vessel screen, and we'll see all the new stuff that you added there as well. Alright everybody, so here we are back on the vessel screen, or the recovered vessel screen, and we have some more stuff. So we have mission summary for 24-Flight 6. We have our science, this is science we've acquired. Crew report from Kerbin's upper atmosphere, recovery vessel from survived flight, both are 0, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. So this is the screen we're used to seeing. Now, we hit next, boom, it goes to parts. Here's a really fun thing about parts. We have recovered a command pod Mark 1. It is worth $576.24. Now remember, our command pod is worth $600. Because the command pod was used, it's worth a little bit less money now. And because of that, we get $576.24 back. Our Mark 16 parachute, again, $413.56 back. And our monopropellant, which is contained inside of our command pod, 1.18, which is $11.76. This comes back randomly. I have no idea why this is. When I went into upper orbit, it was worth like $2. So maybe it depends on how far away you went before you came back. I don't know. But basically, we got $1,001.56 back from our rocket. So the idea there is the more parts you recover from your rocket, a completed rocket that comes back intact 100%, the more money you get back from the parts that went up. Now, don't try to design your rocket to keep all the parts. That's not what this is supposed to do. This is supposed to help you by giving back some of the funds even from a failed launch. That's what it's designed to do. It's not meant for you to do a Saturn V or an asparagus system or whatever that keeps all the parts into orbit and back down again. That's not what it's for. So don't think that's what it's for. It's just nice to know that they balance the game really well to where even if a rocket falls over and blows up, if you can recover some of the parts, you get some of the money back. Couple of things that people are going to ask that I'd like to stress right now. 1, debris does not give you money. It has to be part of the command. It has to be part of the command pod, whatever it is, whether it's a unibody probe, or if it's a command pod with a Kerbal in it. It has to be attached to that in order to get money back. Lots of people have been asking all over the place, hey, can I get money for scrapped parts? Can I eject like a launch stage and put it on a parachute and have it float back down to Kerbin and collect it and get my money back? No. The game treats all debris as debris. And I had an incident previously where I was testing where I brought an entire rocket down. I mean, it was 3 stages left, lots of money worth, and it hit the water and perfectly fine, but it was so high out of the water that it fell over, and when it fell over, it blew up a single fuel tank between the upper stages and the lower stages. And all I got my money back for was the command pod, because the debris, even though it was sitting right there, was considered debris and wasn't attached to anything. So the only way that I would knowingly say that you could get all your money back is to put an individual probe body on every single part you're going to eject and parachutes. But you still have the problem where after 2.5 kilometers, the parts disappear anyway. So you're going to have to deal with that on your own, but please note you don't get money back for debris. Debris is still debris. Any ejected parts are considered debris. Any broken parts are considered debris. So even if it's sitting right next to a command pod, people are like, hey, you can pick up that engine and reuse it. The game doesn't know the difference. Debris is debris is debris. So you're not going to get any money out of that. You can try to build rockets where more parts come back than not, if that's your gig, and that is an option, but it's not a requirement. So note that this isn't meant to make you want to build rockets that all the parts come back to. Still use asparagus systems, still use ginormous rockets, still use rockets that shed parts all the way up into orbit if you need to, But know that if you bring parts back, you will get more money that way. We hit next again, and we get our crew available for a new mission. Jebediah Kerman, of course, 1 crew member recovered, and we get plus 1.7 reputation. So this, like science, just like science. All right, just like science, you get reputation depending on what you did. Jebediah Kerman just flew up and came back down, plus 1.7 reputation. First time you do that, you get like 25. Second time you do it, you get like 9. So on and so forth. So it reduces each time you do it. So flights that are repeated, flights that just do the same thing over and over again, do not net you additional reputation or the same amount of reputation. It nets less and less and less each time. Super duper important to know that as well. Now, of course, up here we have our data. 2 parts, 1 resource is recovered at KSC, 98% of value. That's what we get, 98% of value. I do not know if this value changes depending on distance, or if it changes depending on quality or anything like that. But like I said, I believe my monopropellant got me like $12 to $13, like almost $2 per unit when I was up in higher orbit. So you'll have to test that yourself and see if maybe you get more money from a rocket that goes up into orbit. Maybe someone will figure out a way to exploit that to where you can earn tons of money by sending a $600 rocket into space and then bringing it back and get $12,000 out of it or something. I don't know. You'll have to figure that out. But yeah, it's 98% of value. And so we go to next to the crew. Jebediah Kerman, our total reputation is that, and we are done. Now, while we're here and we've recovered our vessel, we can take a look at all this fun stuff. They have added, of course, we already know about this. We can fast forward time right here on the, well, we're looking at the, at KSC, which is really great. The Space Command mission building has been moved. I believe it was right here previously. It has now been moved over here. This is where your mission command is. This is where you get all your contracts. The SPH is still here, the VAB is still here, we still have the launch pad and the tracking station, our science station, and our Kerbal recruitment center. So we have all these fun, wonderful things. But yes, the mission where you get your contracts is now right here. Down here we have our current date, year 1, day 3, 4 hours, 45 minutes, 25 seconds. As you can see, time still ticks by. We can sit here until nighttime comes, but we're not going to. Money, prestige, and science is all right here. We have our current contracts and any messages that we need. A big thing here that they've changed is if we click on our menu button, we no longer go back to the main menu. We get this menu. So we get our game pause. This is the name of our game. I just called it default, so it's just default career mode. We can resume, save, load, or quit to main menu. So they've now added this in here. So when you click back, you're no longer just going to go back to the main menu with all the little Kerbals orbiting Kerbin. You're going to go to this one where you can save your game. You can quick save. I know this is Alt F5, I believe, is what people have been using lately. You hit Alt F5 and it gives you the ability to do multiple quick saves versus just a single default quick save. Well, now you can actually have a base save game here with a certain name like Home or KSC or Before Launch or whatever. So you can now save your game before you quit. So we'll go ahead and resume. Now everything else is about the same. The SPH is roughly the same. So is the Kerbal Recruitment Center and the Science Lab. All the same stuff, all the same tech tree, everything's perfectly fine. These are just some of the changes that we have here in the game. I don't know how asteroid travel is affected. I don't believe that it is. I do know, I don't know if asteroids have been changed. I don't believe that they have it. I'm sorry. It is still included, but it has not been changed. I'm not sure why I said that it was. I do know that the tutorials have been updated. There's lots of updates to the tutorials that teach you how to use the claw, how to dock with asteroids. Some of the older tutorials have been updated. So if you're a new player or a relatively new player and you need to learn how to use these things and you think, oh my god, they're so hard, I can't even get to one. How am I supposed to learn how to use this claw thing? Head to the tutorial section and look them up. I don't cover the tutorials because I never have, because the tutorials for me were never that helpful. Not saying they're not helpful, they were just not helpful to me, so I've never covered them. If you guys want to check out the tutorials to learn how to use the claw to grab asteroids, to learn how to use certain, the fly to dock, to things like that, they have had a huge update in this version of KSP, so you guys can check that out. As far as I'm aware, there are no new parts. Haven't seen any new parts added this time. I know a lot of people really love the updates because they're looking forward to new parts. No new parts. If you guys want new parts, you're going to have to mod up. But everything else is remaining basically the same, just lots of visual changes, the addition to the contract system, which makes career mode a lot more interesting, believe me. Instead of just launching flights constantly into orbit, I put together a ship that basically just activated an engine on the launch pad to finish a contract. That was it. so you have a lot more ways of learning and doing science. Some of the contracts, I understand, can be really weird. I mean, rescuing a Kerbal, fine, but some of the contracts can be really oddball. They can be difficult. They can be very difficult. They can be very easy, and I believe they go much further than Kerbin. They probably go out to Joule, get science from Joule, things like that. Super awesome stuff. So it expands career mode by a very, very, very large amount. So you guys should go out there. You should pick up the game, absolutely, if you haven't already. You should check it out. You should download the update. You should do your thing. When it's available, of course. When it's available, of course. And that's all the changes I can point out right now that I have seen in my short experience here in 0.24. So for now, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining me, 4KB Short, on this Let's Learn of Kerbal Space Program with 0.24, and I will see you guys next video.